about to start. This is going to be an open discussion. We will be starting shortly. Again, I want to welcome you to the Reach episode 11. We have a great discussion coming. We're going to be talking about building stronger communities, making sure we have our access granted to connect and network with the folks we need to connect with so we can start, build up nonprofits, and help to grow our communities. If this is something that interests you, I want you to make sure you tune in for this episode. Be sure to like, be sure to share, make sure friends and all of those who can benefit from this will be a part of this episode. We'll be starting in about 5 minutes. See you guys soon. About 4 minutes to go before the discussion begins. It's going to be a great discussion. I'm excited about it. We have 2 great panelists with us today. Be sure to tune into this discussion. You don't want to miss it.
Time.
conversation, that can engage in this conversation, be sure to share the link with them so that they can be a part. Again, we are starting shortly, and we want you to be a part of this discussion. All right, everyone, welcome to The Reach. My name is AJ Daly. I'm the Northeast Region Youth Director for the Church of God of Prophecy, and this is The Reach, a weekly panel discussion where we like to talk about the latest topics of the day. We hope to provide information, inspiration, and reach you right where you are. We have some great panelists with us today. We have my sister, my friend, Kadeen Grant. Welcome, Kadeen.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being a part. And we have my brother, Alric Douglas. Welcome, Al. Can't hear you. Still can't. There we go. Welcome. So again, I want to welcome everyone. This is The Reach, a weekly panel discussion that we have. Today, this week's theme is Access Granted, Building Stronger Communities. We're going to focus on those who have visions to build nonprofits and help to grow their communities. We're going to talk about that today. Talk about what it takes to build a 501(c)(3). We're going to bring all of those into the discussion. And remember, this is an open platform, an open panel discussion. So if you're on Facebook Live, if you're on YouTube Live, we want you to engage in the conversation. And when you ask questions, we'll be sure to bring them up and address them. So without further ado, I want to first introduce our host, breathe a word of prayer, and then get started with the discussion. So I want to first introduce Kadeen Grant. She is, or let me say, Kadeen Grant, a.k.a. K Beautiful. She is a wife. She is a mother, a motivational speaker, graphic designer, podcast host, vlogger, English teacher, and certified parent and life coach practitioner. She is the proud owner of Beautiful Inc. Incorporated, which is a 501(c)(3) nonprofit girls empowerment organization. Beautiful Inc.'s mission is to provide empowerment programs to strive to enhance the lives of minority girls through workshops, products, and events that encourage individual advancement and reduces behavioral issues. Beautiful Inc. also has dope t-shirts. The t-shirt line is called B2FL.
B2FL, yeah, that's right.
She has a vlog series called Subway Talk and Walk. And a podcast, I love the name of this, Thy Queendom Come.
Yeah.
We'll have to talk about that a little bit on this episode. I love that name. And then we have my brother, Al. Al is the CEO of I Empower. Similar theme there. He's a counselor, motivational speaker, minister of the gospel, two-time author where he's written The Involved Parent and 9 Ways to Empower Yourself Today. And he's currently working on his 3rd book. My brother holds a master's in counseling and education and guidance services, and he is currently a guidance counselor within the New Jersey Department of Education. Al, thank you again for being on The Reach.
All right, I'm glad to be here.
Yes. And I want to point out again, this is live. This is engaging. This is an open discussion. So if you have questions, if you have input, if you have insight, please drop them in the comments. So before we begin, I want to open with just a word of prayer. Lord, I lift you up. I honor you and I magnify your name. I pray that as you gave us this opportunity, that will help to inspire, provide information, and encourage others to help build their communities. I pray that you'll lend a voice to Kadeen, that you'll lend a voice to Al as they let people know the things that they have learned in their experiences to help empower others. We give you praise and honor, and we pray that you'll have your way in this discussion. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen. Amen. All right. So, again, I want to point out again, I'm already seeing folks in the chat laying comments. Hello, Dr. Meeks. Hello, Brad Scottman. There's a few folks in the chat. Thank you for being engaged in the Reach in this discussion. So as we've been going through this pandemic, like many folks, you've had time to sit, to think, to ponder. God has sort of maybe spoken to you, the skill sets, the creative thoughts that you've had, the visions, the dreams, many of the talents that you've had. You've probably started to cultivate them, right, during this pandemic. You've been just sitting down, you've been home, so you've had all the time, and people started even birthing ministries, evangelism ministries, telebroadcast ministries. Some folks have even started businesses during this pandemic from an idea, and even nonprofits. And it may have started from an idea, and perhaps they even had the vision to start it before, but they were always afraid, right? Perhaps they decided, let me work for a corporation or for a nonprofit so I can learn the ropes, so that they can eventually teach me enough so I know what I need to start it. And maybe perhaps during the pandemic, things went awry and they lost their job, they lost their position. So now they're in a place where they can pursue those dreams. So right now, we're coasting off where people are now starting to go back to semi-normal, leaving their homes, somewhat where they're not as home all the time, going back to work normally and not just working from home. And they're probably thinking to themselves, so I had this vision, I had this idea, this creative thought, and I started to implement it during the pandemic. And I'm trying to figure out if this is something that I should still pour into even after the pandemic is over and we get back to what we would consider normalcy. And so they're probably at a pivotal moment, really trying to decide, is this something that I need to go forward with? So in that aspect, in that light, I would like for you guys to just talk about, for someone in that situation, right? They need to know if they're ready for what's next. Are they ready? Maybe it's, building a t-shirt company to sell designer t-shirts. Maybe it's, starting a mentoring program for young men and women. Maybe it's developing a nonprofit organization to help better their communities. They had this idea, they had this vision. They've been pouring into it during the pandemic because they have the time. Now that time is weaning off and they're trying to decide, is this something I need to go with? So in that light, when did you guys have your pivotal moment in developing your organization where you decided this is something that I have to do and now is the time to do it? And I'll start with you, Kadeen.
Okay, yay, come to me first. For me, I know for sure that my nonprofit was God-given, the vision behind it, because it lined up all my talents. It lined up exactly what he'd been preparing me for my whole life, and I actually heard him speak to me about it. And we can get into that at a different point, but it took some years before I was actually ready to launch, because as you read from my bio, I'm a wife, I'm a mother, I'm a full-time employee. At the time I was still actually in school. And what happened for me is that things completely lined up. I knew that I was able to take the opportunity of unemployment, so I would still have money coming in while I can take that leap of faith. Some people want to accumulate money before they take that leap of faith. And some people are even brave enough to take the leap of faith without having any idea or any sound funding behind it. So the phrase "just do it," I believe in completely. However, I do think that you should also have, make sure that you have a way to pay your bills while you're doing it. And that was major for me, and a very big learning curve as well with starting Beautiful Inc.
Got it. Al, what's your take on it?
So I can reference starting a business to this.
Mm-hmm.
Is that no matter how prepared you are or qualified you are, sometimes there is no perfect moment. I mirror that to a um, runner who trains all season. In the end, winner of the race is dependent on the one who reacts to the gun, right? And I think in the season we have to, when starting a business, it's all about your reaction time. The thing is that some people are more concerned about what the crowd thinks about what happens at the end of the race. But the athlete that wants to win recognize that no matter what's going on in the crowd, no matter what record I held before this moment, it's all about my reaction time. If I react early, it's called a false start. And so in the business, we have to also be aware of those realities that sometimes if you react too early, it's a false start, and that could lead to disqualification, right? So you have to know the reaction time, and for some people, it's a spiritual awakening that God will just tell them to get up now and do it. Regarding for me, I think my reality of my business was started out of a moment where I was tired of what should I say, being in the crowd. I wanted I was the one who would cheer everybody on, and I realized that I wanted my moment on the track, right? And I assessed myself. Do you have no training for the race? Are you skilled enough to go on the race? And when I did assessment of my skill set, my training, which sometimes were trials of themselves, I realized that I was in a perfect moment to go on track and run. And my business was just a good reaction time. I realized that I reacted immediately to God's call, and here we are today, almost my second year anniversary.
It's interesting. Both of you mentioned when you had that pivotal moment that you realized that it was a God calling or a God thing. So how did you know it was a God thing? Because, some folks feel like what they're doing is a God thing, but maybe, they're unsure and they're not sure if it's something they should run with. How did you know what, in your experience when you were starting your organization, what marked it or what brought it forth as that this is a God thing and I need to run with it? I'll start with you, Alan, then we'll jump to Kadeen.
Well, and so just because this is it's an open discussion, we in the spiritual world call it the leading of God, right? In the secular world, people say, follow your guts, right? And so it's very, very important that to know that you never feel prepared for these moments. Like I said, you never feel prepared. You can't. And no perfect runner goes on the track thinking that they're automatically going to win. So they go there. Like I said, it's all about reaction time. Who gets on the block first? And we have to. And when you get into that place of planning, so the thing about it too is that you can have an idea of what you want to do, but it has to connect itself with something that you see yourself doing for more than just a moment, right?
Yeah.
Because what happened to it that as I saw in the chat, and somebody's asking, how do you know that it's more than just an idea? You know when it's more than an idea when you tell yourself, I will get up every day for the rest of my life doing this. And if you don't see yourself getting up every day for the rest of your life doing it, it's maybe not an idea, it's maybe just an excitement that you're experiencing, seeing somebody else on the track running and winning medals, and all of a sudden think win a race. Not because you see Usain Bolt winning these 100 meters, that's your reality. He trained, that's his thing. And so sometimes we have to make sure we're differentiating excitement from passion, right? We have to be very careful that we're distinguishing excitement from passion. I can be excited about winning the race, but passion will put me in training. Passion will put me in training and prepare me for the race itself.
Yeah, it's interesting that you point that out. Differentiating between excitement and passion. The interesting is when I was growing up, people used to always say this phrase, don't run with your passions, right? Do what's practical. So oftentimes, right, there's a fine line between, am I excited about doing something or this is truly a passion? So in that light, I always wondered, or I always thought, okay, if you're gonna follow your passions, right? How do you know if it's something that you will do? Because again, you mentioned it's something that you will do waking up every morning, even when it's hard, you want to do it. How will you know unless you go through it that you want, like, this is what you want to do? Because like I might be excited to, play basketball, but I'm not qualified for the NBA, and I'm not going to be going out there every single day on the courts. There might be things that I'm excited about, but in my mind, I might say I'm passionate, but how do I know that this is something that I want to do? How do I know? So, Kadeen, as you answer that it's if it's a God thing, just frame that, for some young folks who are listening and say, I'm excited about, technology. I'm excited about, doing online stuff, but how do I know that I'm passionate about it? How do I get to that point where you definitely know that if you were to do this every single day of your life and deal with the headaches, the pain and stress of it, that you would still want to do it day in, day out?
Yeah. So I want to answer that, but I kind of want to back up to the beginning with how do you know it's a God thing? And I actually used to shy away from telling the story of how I came up with Beautiful Incorporated because to the secular world, it sounds crazy. But to my spiritual, my religious people, they completely understood. And I literally heard God talking to me. So I was in my what I call creative graveyard, which is a 9 to 5 with cubicles.
Yep.
And for a creative, that's like a graveyard for you. And it was a peaceful march in Philadelphia down Broad Street for Freddie Gray. So we're talking a couple years ago. And everyone got up to the windows, and I'm watching all these people march down the street. And the whole room got quiet. And I can see my coworkers talking to each other. I can see their mouth moving, and I could not hear them. And I heard God say, "You're not supposed to be here. You're supposed to be doing something else." And I backed away from the window. I went back to my cubicle, and I heard him say it again. And I literally remember grabbing all of the printer paper from my personal printer and writing. And by the time I was done, I had beautiful ink in my hand.
Wow.
It was literally every single thing that he's been preparing me as a pastor's kid from the time I was little to that point there. I can see everything, who it was for. It was for young girls. It was for a younger generation, bringing the word of God in a dope way. It was all these different things lined up, and I can connect it of how he prepared me my whole life. Now, that's just personally me. Many people have God talk to them in different ways. But how did I know that this is still a God thing and it's connected to my passions? I like to say, like, your dream, if it's really full of your passion, it becomes a nightmare because it haunts you when you are not doing what you're supposed to do for it. When you are procrastinating, I believe that procrastination is the killer of purpose. Wow. So when you're procrastinating, when you're not doing what God can do, when you're not doing those steps, your dream starts to haunt you. So I do believe in following your passions because, again, if you're not going to wake up or you're not going to stay up late and digging into this, then it's just a fleeting feeling. It's really not your passion. And I just want to point out, you definitely have to have a plan because that march for Freddie Gray, we're now in 2020. This is years later. And I love using the analogy of a bamboo tree. I did not know that with a bamboo tree, when it's planted, it takes 5 years before it even breaks the ground.
Wow. So
you're sitting there watering this dirt for 5 years. And, people are saying, "You sure you got a tree in there? You sure you're doing it?" And that's exactly what building a business or nonprofit is. You're doing all the groundwork. I knew that I would not be able to afford a graphic designer. So I taught myself graphic design with YouTube. I taught myself how to make websites. I taught myself how to make t-shirt designs. And that took time. So from the moment of writing beautiful ink on paper and actually launching took 4 years.
Wow.
And that's what I mean by following your passion, and it's haunting you when you're not staying on top of it. And it breaks the ground like the bamboo tree. It takes time.
I like what you said. You just said a phrase. You said it haunts you when you're not on top of it, when you're not pursuing it. I think that's the
Yeah.
indicator right there. If God keeps laying it on your heart, and it's that idea, it's that thought that you had where you could do this thing, and God keeps laying it on you time and time again, and you feel restless in a sense,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
Until you birth this vision. And you said it, and other people said it in the chat, that it really requires just doing it, putting your plan to action.
Mhm.
And I think that's so encouraging because, even with myself, as I was growing up, I had certain ideas and thoughts, but it wasn't until I started to act out on those things, all right, this is what I want to do. What's step one? And start with step one, right? There's an old proverb that says the journey of 10,000 steps starts with one step.
Mhm.
Until you actually start, you won't know. You won't be able to pursue and go forward. So for those, listening that are trying to figure out if this passion that I have is a God thing. I even saw someone in the chat mentioning wanting to do a prayer wall, but not really liking social media. If you have something that's been burning in your heart to bring forth, just do it. Who knows?
Yes.
Maybe that's not the final thing, but God is leading you to what that final thing is. Maybe it's a preparation or training ground for what's next. But unless you act on it, unless you move forward, you won't know. You'll just keep dreaming and wishing. There's a quote that I've often heard that the worst thing to do is to let a dream be deferred and to let it die. It comes from the poem/play Raisin in the Sun, And
Yep.
oftentimes we see so many people just have these dreams, have these great visions, and they don't birth it. They don't take that first step. And sometimes it's just that first step to get you driven and going,
Mhm.
And so I want you guys to start to talk about just your organization. So I'll start with you, Kadeen. So people gotta get an understanding of your organization. What's the mission and the goal of your organization? When you were starting it, what was the mission and the goal? What were you trying to do?
Well, at the time, I thought had no idea what girl empowerment meant. I just knew that I felt like there's a generation that's completely lost. And how do we guide them back and not just like to be more classy or etiquette, because a lot of girl things are etiquette and makeup and beauty, but like a real internal complete transformation. And I knew that they had to be led to God. But it wasn't until maybe a year after coming up with it, my friend told me, well, you should definitely go into schools and see if you can make your program into an after school program. When becoming a teacher, I realized, okay, there's behavioral issues. There's so many things going on with our girls. They get kicked out. It's not just from school to prison pipeline with boys. It's with girls as well. So what exactly can I do? And I understood that the root of the problem is self-worth, is self-esteem, and is family dynamics at home. So like my mission became, and I have my 30-second elevator speech in case, people listening don't know. It's like, okay, you get in an elevator with a millionaire. They can give you the money that you need right now. You have 30 seconds to tell them what your business is about. So I was like, Beautiful Inc. is a 501c3 nonprofit organization dedicated to building the self-esteem and self-worth of adolescent minority girls through products, workshops, and events. And that would be my 30-minute pitch. And they'd be like, okay, tell me more. So by teaching and actually working with these young girls, it then transformed into not only do I need to be in schools with them, I need to be at home with them. And that's when it transformed into I'm really trying to heal the mother and daughter relationship, because that right there, that basis at home is exactly what's needed. And that's what Beautiful Inc. from the beginning has now transformed to in 2020.
That's awesome. And so, Al, just talk about I Empower a little bit. What was the mission and vision? Because I believe in you guys communicating the mission and vision that you had. They can sort of see and understand that they're able to, if they can convey what they want to do, what they want to see happen in their community, if they can see you guys conveying it, it can then empower them or encourage them to say, oh, if they can start from that vision, from that mission, and develop the companies that they have, the nonprofits that they have, maybe I can do it too. So Al, just tell them a little bit about the mission and vision when you started the inception of iEmpower.
Yeah. So it was literally one day I sat down and I said to myself that I had a counseling master's degree. So I knew before that company started that I want to spend the rest of my life working with people and helping people be better. But I just didn't have a proper focus area how it's going to get done. And so before that, I've always been the one that people call to talk to when they're having hard times. And so I said, how can I use that avenue that people sometimes the thing about your business or your vision is it's connected to what people seek you out for, right? And so I use that as one of my leverage points. That people always come to me for just to talk. I mean, maybe something about my encouragement that sticks with them. And I remember clearly one night I sat down. Okay, I guess I'm going to make this a business now. I'm going to start helping people at a higher level. I still do have a mentorship program where I work with young men, and that was already happening. And so I said, I want to connect everything together. And I remember one day I sat on my table and I was on Vistaprint and I began to make my business card. I had an old picture and I was like, and I'm going to crop this picture out. I want to put it on Vistaprint. So before there was any legal documents, I did everything backwards. I had my business launch and I was doing business with people with no legality. Thank God, no, that is all taken care of. Where my business is fully registered and all that stuff. But when the first set of business card came, then I had to start getting to work. I'm like, oh my God, I have business cards now. I gotta get this company registered. I gotta make sure that I have all the legal things taken care of. And they started happening. Yeah. But the thing about it that the MO for my company is that people are not moved by words; they are moved by choices. And I realized that even though we're doing empowerment, so you can do everything that everybody's doing, but you have to find out your niche, like what in that whole pool you're going to take out. And so I said to myself that my tagline for the company is people are not moved by words, they are moved by choices. So my goal for the company was to point people to choices that will make a better outcome in their life. And so the more I dug into that, I realized that I am a carrier of resources to people. So people come to me and they want to get college applications. So I will help young men get into college. You know what I mean? If you want any area of choices that you want to be a good choice you want to make, whether it's opening your business or launching your company or whatever you want to do. So I realized that my goal was to help people start up their next big thing. And so for me, not just giving a big speech, it was to enlighten a big vision. So I've had my own company and I've helped people open their own company. I have my own t-shirt line. I've helped other people start their own t-shirt line. I wrote books. I also help people to start writing their books. I mean, so my goal is to put people's vision into a place of action.
That's good. That's good. And so I want to point out that we are having a live discussion. So that means you can lend your comments and questions in the chat and we will be sure to address them. And we had one comment by India. She says, feel like I just need a push. I know that there is more to life than just working for other people. I feel like I need a push. So what would you say to someone that feels like that? Like they just need a push. They know that they can do more. They know that they can do greater things, right? And they need a push. What would you say to encourage them to have that push, to sort of drive forward that vision that they may have, that idea that they may have? I'll start with you, Kadeen, and then we'll jump to you, Al.
So I love what Pastor Al said, is that, like your business is connected to what people seek you for. And I think I've always been the advice friend. So once I started my business, then people was like, well, how do I do it? So I just had to tell them what I did. And I started with a journal and I started with my vision and my ideas. And then from every single part, I had to map out each step. So if you need that push, start doing the research. Because when it's just an idea, once you do the research and you make these big goals become smaller ones and smaller steps, and you literally just walk one foot in front of the other, you will see how attainable it is.
Wow.
How you can, oh, I can actually do this. I just put my kids to bed at 9 o'clock and I'm going to go to bed at 11. I have 2 hours. Let me do this. And you'll start to see that the more time you have, the more knowledge that you have toward it, the more you're writing in your journal and connecting each step with the research behind it, you will see how attainable it is. And you're pushing yourself with more research that you do and more steps that you take.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. I like that. You broke it down. You said that normally we'll have this big grandiose goal, but if you break it down into little simpler steps, it seems more feasible. And I think that's what it requires. You have this big, great vision. And I think sometimes what happens with people is the vision scares them, right? They have this great vision of building this organization, of building whether for-profit or nonprofit. They have this great vision and how they can impact their community. But the grandeur of the vision, right? The large, the huge vision in their minds, it's like, how can I accomplish that? But if they then just begin to break it down, first I need a business plan. After the business plan, find donors or investors. I need to network, connect with certain people. When you break it down into those small goals and you achieve those small goals, before you know it, you're at the big vision and you didn't even realize. You'll just be there one day and be like, wow, it actually happened, And so, Al, I want to know your take on this. What would you say to someone that needs that push? That they have this vision, this goal, this mission, this thing that God has planted in their minds and in their hearts that they need to bring forth. What would you say to them to get that push to keep going?
So the law of aerodynamics says an object in motion stays in motion, and an object at rest stays at rest. And I think that's a law that should guide any aspiring business owner. If you don't have the capacity to stay in motion, then it's not going to work. You have to stay in motion, because the push is going to lead you somewhere. I remember one day encouraging somebody to apply for grants, right? And I was saying to the person that if you plan your idea properly and it's attractive, it will blow up quicker than you think. Because if you check all these grant websites and that are giving out grants for nonprofits, they're just waiting for an idea that works, right? And so all that free money out there is connected not just to emotion, it's connected to a planned idea that's drafted. That's also Kadeen drafted her business. It's something you have to show somebody what's in your head. It's more than excitement of having a good thought. And so, you have to make sure that you're writing these things down, you're documenting them, you're, can go on Google and find some, generic business model and make sure that you have plan and idea, because what happens is that sometimes your idea could be so attractive and somebody want to try it out and they will give you that $1 million grant that you wanted all your life, but you realize now that there wasn't proper planning in place and you lose out of the moment because there was no plan. So while you have the drive, you gotta stay in motion now. Okay, all right, I have this great idea. One, I'm gonna stay in motion. I want to now start to find somebody who can help me to write this business plan. I'm staying in motion. I'm going to go on the government website and see all the legalities surrounding this process. I'm staying in motion. Do I need staffing? I want to stay in motion. And one of the other things too that I want to drop right here is that a lot of us so often think that our idea has to be localized. You have to be quicker than your zip code. Sometimes God an idea that is needed in Michigan, not in New York, right? And then sometimes the vision will relocate you. And so if you're really stuck on I like the weather in New York and I don't want to go to Florida to be in the sun all year, then maybe that's where your vision is going to be. Maybe New York is already overpopulated with that vision, and we need to carry that same vision somewhere else. So a lot of people are not able to handle that transportation process. That sometimes a vision that is localized could die early. And so even though we're saying here, we're trying to build stronger communities, but sometimes your voice, sometimes you gotta grow out, and then you grow in. You gotta grow outwards and grow in other places and develop your idea, and then come back and make it work in your local community.
That's good stuff. And you mentioned something that's interesting. You said to stay in motion and prepare yourselves for when that moment comes. And you mentioned an elevator speech. And I want to point out something that was said in the comments. It was Leslie. She says, purpose, prepare, plan. And
that's good.
when I was growing up, one of the mentors that I had, he used to always say this one thing, is that, two things. He used to say that those that fail to plan to fail. He used to say that to me all the time. And the other thing that he used to say is there's no such thing as luck, but those who are prepared for the right opportunity and for when the right opportunity comes. So essentially, what his mindset, his mantra was, if you're doing the right things when that moment comes, right? Let's say you have a business plan and you already have it all. You have the elevator pitch ready. And when the right person comes along, you already have everything set. You have the vision, you have the mission, you have the plan, the strategy, and how to act it out. And you have all that you need so that when they ask that question, what do you plan to do? What do you want to do? You lay it out, and then you have your key investor, your key donor, the key person that will connect you and network you with the right people to get it started. And I think that's all a part of it. Acting now, developing and building the plan so that when the time comes, you are ready to go. And I think that's a part of what people need to do. So I'm going to segue into something that you guys mentioned that I think is critical, and it's the elevator speech, right? So first, for those who may not know, what is the elevator speech, right? We want to first define what it is. And two, how did you develop your elevator speech, and how did that help you? Whether it was in your nonprofit, trying to find donors, or trying to find grants. How did it help you? Did you find yourself in critical moments and opportunities where you had the elevator speech prepared and it helped get you a connection or help build or grow your network in a way that you wouldn't have if you didn't have it prepared? So we want to just answer that, to focus on the elevator speech and how it helped. So I'm going to start with you, Kadeen, and then we'll go to Al.
Yeah, so I kind of explained in my mind, the elevator speech is basically knowing your business in and out, knowing your mission, being able to concisely say it as if you were in the elevator with someone who can completely change your life. So you have to know what you're talking about. People can tell when you are just finessing. There's this saying, fake it till you make it, and I absolutely hate it because I tried it, just like Pastor Al said when he printed out his first business card. And there's some things that I did completely backwards, and I realized I basically was like, hey, come see my garden, and all I had was a garden of seeds. I didn't have anything really planted. Yeah, the elevator speech and knowing exactly what your company is inside and out really helped me. But I want to be completely honest. I feel like when it comes to branding and your brand, your personality is your brand. So just me being me and my passion for what I believe and what I want for my company has gotten me way more connections than this rehearsed elevator speech that I thought that I needed. Literally inviting someone for coffee and getting to know them and telling them what I believe has gotten me way more connections. And I think in the nonprofit world, relationships is major. So that's what happened.
That's an interesting take. It actually reminds me of the book, I think by Dale Carnegie, How to Win Friends and Influence People. And it's really sort of talking about that, sort of engaging people at the person-to-person level and establishing connections. So that's an interesting take. Al, what's your take on it?
My take too is that everything that grows in this age grows from testimony. So sometimes it's very we underestimate the power of the undiscovered success that we have had in our lives. So I guarantee you, like Katie and myself, before we became known in our craft, we had our and two seeds in the ground we changed. So I've been empowering people for since I was in church youth ministry when I was like 17 years old. I have people who still follow me, you know what I mean, all these years later. I remember when I was back in the youth department in church 20 years ago or 15 years ago, how much something I did for them or I encouraged them. I'm still connected. Like most of the young men who I mentored before I started I Empower, I'm still in connection with them, and it's like a 17-year, 15, 12, 10-year connection that still exists. And I've seen changes in their life. So when I get in the elevator, I go into the need based assessment of my company.
Yeah.
So I'll say, hey, like I'll say, for example, hello, my name is Albert Douglas. I'm president and CEO of iEmpower, where we help people unlock their dreams and success. Do you know anyone who is in search of any empowerment in terms of college acquisition or employment purposes? I'll be happy to help. So the fact that I give them targeted them to my the need I see, then they will let me know if that's something that they're connected to. Because what I've realized over time is that if your elevator speech is not connected to what you have to offer, people will offer you what you're not skilled for, right? Yeah. So you have to make sure that in your elevator speech, you're selling the products you have on the shelf, not the idea of what you can sell. Because I realize the moment I say I can help young men get into college, or I can help young men get jobs, those parents are coming after me immediately.
Yeah.
And they want that they get a job, and they want their kids to get in college. And so I have to make sure I have the resources ready and available to help these young people get to the next level. And so, that is why you can't just allow somebody else's excitement to drive your passion. Because you are gonna have to answer the question after you. Provide resources after you launch your pitch. So you have to make sure that you have things in the back end prepared. So, like Katie could have pointed, I guarantee, people to young ladies she changed before she started her company, and I could point people to people who I've changed before I started my company. So, in putting it together, I think those people who are aspiring to have like 501 3Cs or nonprofit entity or LLC, don't underestimate your back end work that nobody sees. Don't underestimate the things that you're doing that are not being published or broadcasted. That is going to be that thing that you go to, that reservoir you go to and pull out now. So you can get the launch that you need.
That's a good point. So you both have laid out two very good points. One, Al, you talked about having your experience, your back experience, and not underestimating it. And that's what could really help to build, in a sense, I'm going to paraphrase and let me know if I'm off key, it can help to really build your reputation, right? So where the things that you have done formerly, where you used to help and mentor young men, that helps to build the reputation of the company. So you're not really starting fresh, right? You're not really starting from nothing. You're starting from the experiences that you've already had and led. I love that. And then the other thing you mentioned, Kadeen, was, and I'm going to paraphrase, but you said you did not have an elevator speech, but you connected with people. So that goes to my next question, really. How much is it needed to connect and network and engage with folks? How much do you need to really build your network? As a simple way to say it. How much do you need to build your network in order for your nonprofit to grow, in order for your organization to grow? How important is it to really build that network? And were there like meetup groups that you had to go to? Were there focus groups? Was there like an organization that sort of connected you with the right people to know what you needed to do to bring the organization forth? How important and how critical was that component, the networking and engaging with other folks? I'll start with you, Kadeen, and then we'll jump to you, Al.
Yeah, so I had to learn the hard way that I can't do everything myself and that I actually don't know everything, no matter how awesome I think I am. So even with getting my 501c3 status, I actually went to someone, even though I knew that I can go on Google, even though I knew that I can file these documents myself, I actually asked for help. And that's something that's really important to do. So when it comes to trying to put programs in schools or try to change the behavioral issues with young girls, I completely realized that I actually need the community. I need the school community and I need the home community. And I actually learned that from my grant writer. You know, she told me that most of the money that you get is from the relationships that you actually built. And she said it perfectly. She said, you know, if you have your program, but every day you walk past a pizza store and you have not gone in that pizza store, introduce yourself, tell them about your business, you're missing an opportunity where they can give you a free pizza every Friday when you have your program. And that is something that you can't put a dollar sign to.
Yep.
So it is all about networking. It's all about what's in your community and how you can connect them to your passion and the relationships that you build. I think that's just the lesson, period. Look at your relationship with God. Exactly. Look at your relationship with your spouse. The time and effort that you put into that and building it and having these people in your life and in your business is essential.
That's good. Al, what's your take?
I have a spin on that, Kadeen. Sometimes you have to meet. Something you got to meet the wrong people.
Preach.
So my experience was that when I launched my company, I met some wrong people, right? And they led me to the right people. And that's like some more run, but it's just the reality. Because the more I realize who the people who are not connected to my vision, is the more I realize how to navigate the people who are connected to my vision. And so the people who came on board and gave that temporary excitement, like, yeah, we got you, we'll get you all this stuff done, and then nothing happens, is that it leaves you back alone, you know. And that's one thing that people don't realize too, the loneliness that comes with being a business owner. Like, even though you network, there is that moment when you go into your office space and revisit your vision, and you begin to realize that, oh, I could be wasting time doing it this way. And so I kind of like extend myself into, even though I am severely church-based in my disposition, I try to relate myself around people who are not church-based, because not everybody who is not in church is unrighteous in their practices. There are people who are skill expert. We don't go to our doctor's office, ask them if they have a doctorate in theology, right? They went to school for medicine, and so I realize that sometimes we can be so short-sighted, and we always want everybody in our circle to be spiritual people. And so after a while, I began to not change the position of my faith, but also just change my reach with people. And so I connected with people not in the mainstream, and they will give me ideas that is just what they do, is what they have to tell. It's not because they're trying to make me feel good about them, it's what they know. And then I use the pool of comparison of, getting support within my closer circle. And I realized, though, that no matter what kind of networking you do, the best network you have is your own monitoring of your own vision and dream. Because sometimes people get lost in the network. You go here and you start picking up things from branding ideas and strategies, and before you know it, like, you're so heavy with your vision because you're carrying bits and pieces of other people's journey. At some point you have to see networking. You are the carrier of your brand. right? And sometimes instead of going to events that are network oriented, offer free events that you can share your idea with people who are, we're not expert or anything. One, just to put this in final thought, one of the biggest thing I realized in my company, my business doesn't grow from networking. My business grows from referral. It's people it's people whose life have changed go tell somebody else that I can help, and they tell somebody that I can help. Because there is a level of selfishness in networking. Because if you go in networking with a great idea, you can be sabotaged, and people will to a point, and they leave you dry because they know that you are going to be the next big thing. And and I don't know about you, KD, or AJ, and myself. I am the next big thing, and so I have to protect.
I hear that.
We are the next big thing, and you have to see, and that is empowerment.
Yeah.
It's pride. It's pride. It's like, you have to say, we are the next big thing. This is my moment. This is our moment to thrive and to be known in the earth for what God has blessed us with. And so, even though I value networking, I've seen so often in adding people, you spend so much time traveling to events, and you have such a limited time monitoring your.
Yeah.
That's such a good point. And I think that's why it's key to go back to sort of, the scripture talks about write the vision and make it plain. Yeah. And I think the reason why you have to do that is because, as you said, Al, as you start to network, and if you focus so much on connecting with other people and, following their mantras, their visions, you'll lose sight of your own vision. So, Kadeen, you even mentioned that you were at work and you saw the protests going, and you literally, God brought you into a zone where you just wrote everything down. The reason why that's important is because you can go back to it, right? Yeah. 1 year down the line, 2 years down the line, 3 years down the line, and keep making sure you're on point. You're focused on what the organization's mission and goal is supposed to be, right? Making the main thing. And sometimes it's good to go back to that written down vision, so you make sure that you're still aligned, that yes, you're establishing connections here and there, you're meeting all these great people, but are they aligned with the goal, vision, and mission of the organization? If they're not, you got to drop them. It might sound bad, but it's the truth. If they're not aligned with the vision that God has given you, then you can have people that have good intentions, right? They want to grow and develop themselves. They can even give you positive and great advice. But if it's not aligned with the vision that God has, it's detrimental. It's holding you back from what God has called you to do. It's holding you back from the organization, the nonprofit that God is wanting you to create. And sometimes we get sidetracked when engaging with others. And that's a good point. So it's good to network and build your network, but make sure you're aligned. And there's a question in the comments. It was when there was so the question was, it was aligned with being afraid. Let's say you're not a people person and you're afraid to really engage with people. How would you help someone who they're not a people person? They have this vision. God has given them something and they want to connect and build their network. But how do they do it if they're not really as sociable? They're not a social butterfly. They don't just enter into a networking session, a brunch, and just sort of socialize, mingle, and connect with everyone. How would you give someone advice that wants to build an organization? Maybe they have an idea for a nonprofit. What advice would you give them to help build their network if they feel like they're introverted? I'll start with you, Al.
Well, the thing about that is, we finding that trusted person in your life, like, I'm not going to use the comparison. They always say in church that every Moses needed an Aaron, and that can be very tricky because when Moses went on the then Aaron and let the people turn that the jewelry into a golden calf. So we're very careful that we tell people that every Moses needed an Aaron. But I realized too that somebody who I'm cultivating my vision with right now is an introvert, but he has a passion for my idea. Right, and what I'm doing now is making sure that I'm taking him to the necessary step of understanding my vision for the company, and give him an opportunity to come on board with the vision in his creative sense, right? The thing about it too is that when we go into these kind of organization, people always look for benefits. The truth is, it takes a while for you, even though you may want to be the next big thing, it takes a while for you to get on the screen. But it doesn't mean that you're not big because you're not on the screen yet, right? And so, you can be the visionary of, like, how many songwriters go on the stage to get those Grammy Awards? Like, not all of them. Like, these people go and perform other people's song, and they get good accolades, right? And so some of us have to see ourselves as good songwriters, and sometimes be a consultant then, right? Your vision can grow in the hands of somebody else. If you don't have the skill set and the abilities to execute it on your own because you're introverted, that vision can grow in the hands of somebody else. Collaborate with somebody, we can tell the vision and let them run with it. It still could be your organization, it could be your company, but you are outsourcing your ideas to somebody else who has a skill set, and they are like an arm of your company that execute these things.
Yeah, that's good. Kadeen, what's your thoughts?
I'm an extrovert, so it's kind of hard. Like, I was born on the 4th of July. I call myself fireworks. I have a big personality, so I've been able to stand in front of people and talk from the time I was very small. So I can completely understand how that would be completely build anxiety and be terrifying for someone. And if I love what Pastor Al said about maybe you could be in the background, but maybe you're asking for that help because you actually want to be in the forefront. You know that you can do it. And I would just tell you that God has given you every single thing that you need already instilled inside of you. The confidence is what you are lacking. And you can literally just open up your mouth and let God speak to you exactly everything that you need to have. Being an introvert, it's debilitating for some people. It's completely, it builds anxiety for some people. So practice. Get your friends together. Role play. I tell this to my students all the time when they're scared of giving a speech. Practicing what you want to say, practicing what you want to do. If you want to be in the forefront, I think that's really important to do as well. So you can be in the background, like Pastor Al said, or I think that you can practice, and you can build that confidence of being in the forefront. And that's taken from me, an extrovert. So I don't know how it is to be completely shy, but I would say practicing and getting it out there may be a good suggestion.
Yeah, I would agree. And I think just engaging with people, taking yourself outside of your comfort zone. A lot of people are natural introverts, but the more you get outside of your comfort zone and connect and learn and grow from people, you'll start to find out that even many of the actors that we know, many of the reporters and commentators that we know of, a lot of them are introverts naturally, but from networking, engaging, and in the roles that they have, they've learned and developed extrovert capabilities just from interactions, person-to-person interactions, So I think you guys are right on point with that. So let's get into some practical questions now. So if someone wants to start a nonprofit, how much? I know it varies from state to state, but how much would it cost? So Kadeen, I'd like you to answer that. When you were starting your nonprofit, what were the costs in terms of registering as a 501c3 company, creating the business plan, all of the different tangible things that you had to do? What was the cost of it?
So if I just start with just getting your 501c3 status, which is completely imperative to be a legit nonprofit, so it ranges. I actually hired someone to do it for me. So I again, research. And he was going to do it the paper filing way, like gather everything together, send it off. We were going to wait. And that was almost up to $700 something. But then by research, I found, hey, there's a way to do this online for less than $300. So we're going to go with that route. So even though he was an expert and I hired him by doing my own research and finding different options, I was like, oh, no, you're not going to get me. This is what we're going to do. So I had to do that research. But there are steps that you can take, like your EIN number. So an EIN is like a social security number for your business. That's free. Also, just searching, another step that I had to do is making sure that your name, because you're going to need articles of corporation, you have to make sure that your name isn't taken. So going through your state's website of finding, like typing in your name, making sure no one has it, getting that secure, a whole bunch of steps. And Google is absolutely amazing. So when it came to just my 501c3, it was under $300 for me.
Okay. So $300 is a good starting price. I mean, some may consider it expensive, but I mean, to start your business, get it off the ground, to start your nonprofit, get it off the ground, just need to save up $300. So Al.
Well, state of Pennsylvania.
In the state of Pennsylvania, correct. So it could vary from state to state. Some states it could be more, less, but at least from prior experience, about $300. And I would say even within Connecticut, when I was starting my company, it was a little over $200. And it was actually cheaper before, but when I was applying, the price had gone up to register your company. So it varies from state to state, but I think it would be safe to say that in most states, you can probably get your business off the ground in less than $1,000. I mean, it's probably a stretch if a state is charging more than that to put your stuff together. So, Al, someone's trying to start a 501c, right? They're trying to start a nonprofit. What are some of the challenges that you think that they would have to face? It's similar to starting your own company, and any organization that you're starting, there's going to be some challenges that you have to face, whether filing the paperwork correctly, making sure that you meet your annual tax reporting. What are some of the challenges that a person needs to keep in mind, right, when they're starting their organization and continuing their organization? So like year one, what are some staple things that they need to make sure that they do?
Well, you definitely want to make sure that your taxation process is in check. And your government reporting is in check. It's one of the things that first-time business owners tend to forget because you're so caught up in maintaining everything. And so you have to make sure that you're filing. If, for example, I have an LLC in the 501, but even if you have a 501c, you still got to report your financial status and all those stuff. And so you want to make sure that your reporting is accurate. And you also need to have documentation. The thing about 501c and 501cs, these companies most times are getting funded by grants, right? Somebody they apply for grants, and the grants or whatever the money source is, they have expectations like, who's it going for, how is it to spend, and they have specific guidelines associated with it. And so if you're not careful, you could buy something from the money you got for your grant that is unauthorized, and that could put your grant in jeopardy when it needs to be renewed, because they have the audit process that comes in. And so when you do these nonprofit, you have to understand that you have to be able to handle exposure. These kind of business, you don't get to have all the say in how people evaluate you. Once you're taking people's money in to run a program, they have authority to come in and check how their money has been spent. And so, record keeping is very, very important. And just being honest about making sure you're complying with the criteria of the grants and the monies that you give people. And so what happens a lot is that people will start a 501c or a nonprofit, and out of nowhere you realize that they're not doing it anymore. It's not because the idea died. What happened was that the accountability was lacking, and people kept funding. And when the funding is pulled, unfortunately, your programs are shut down until you find somebody else, or maybe use your own money to keep it going. But we have to realize that once you go nonprofit, you have to be able to go all the way with accountability, transparency, and making sure that you're doing all the right things to keep the money coming in and get your money being renewed. That's very important.
And you make a good point. You mentioned that a lot of nonprofits gain a lot of their funding from grants. So not just donors, but grants. And in order to get those grants, there's many stipulations, things that you have to continue to report on and make sure your organization is aligned to doing to continue to get those grants. So let's start to talk about grants a little bit. One, how do you get grants, right? Let's say I have this great idea. I want to start a tech club within my local community to help train, people within my community to learn about computers, build them, take them apart, to learn about computer science and those kind of things. How do I apply for a grant? I've established my 501c, right? I'm ready to start the organization and go forward. What's the process to getting grants? Are there stipulations to certain grants? Are there certain criterias? What's the grant process like? I'll start with you, Kadeen, and then I'll jump to you, Al.
Well, I was actually hoping you started with Al because I just before Rona hired a grant writer. So yes, Al, please share. How do we get grants? Love to hear it.
The grant writing process, right? So the government has several websites, grant.gov. They have all these websites that have these built-in support that they're community-based supports. And so when it comes on the 501, right, and 501(c)(3)s, you have to make sure that your need-based assessment is really legit, right? That means that is there a need for this program for me to get this money? A lot of people want to have a 501(c), but they defend the need that is in the community. And so a lot of these grant applications want you to do your need-based assessment and make sure that people are really in need of the service that you have, right?
Yep.
That service can be needed in California, but not in New Jersey, right? And so we don't. The government won't give you a grant that you can't prove the need for. And so when you get a grant, now the writing process now goes through. You have to show your staffing that you have enough staff, you have the resources. So, for example, if Katie wants to start a daycare and she's right, grants are out there for daycare. Grants are out there for after-school program. Grants are out there for adult care. There's so much grants out there for different categories, but you have to prove that you have the needs, that there's a need for that in your community. Yeah. And we move from need to resources. Do I have the staffing? Do I have the equipment? Do I have the furniture? Do I have the space to hold this thing, right? And also, they're thinking about if the grant lasts for 5 years, right? Then you have to prove that you can have a lease for a place to hold this grant for 5 years, right? That is not a one-time thing, because once they sign a check over to you, you are not accountable for it to maintain every requirement of that grant. And so if you know that you want to have a daycare, make sure you're researching how to rent a spot and to get a lease for the 5 years and to get staff and prepared and have all these things, right? So when the money comes into your hand, you can get it, right? What we've seen happen before, that when people write grants and they get approved, they get good grant writers and they get approved, but when the grant comes in your hand, they don't have the resource, and so it becomes a short-lived excitement or reality.
It's good. I had a question come in from the comments that I think we should definitely address. Dr. Meek says, how did you choose the board for productivity for the nonprofit? So you mentioned something, Al, about making sure you get the grants, but then also making sure you do what it requires to keep the grant. And I think this question aligns. How do you choose your board, right, to make sure that your organization is operating the way it needs to and is productive and producing, right? So I'll start with you, Al, and then KD, and I'll jump to you.
All right. The thing about it depends on the scope of your nonprofit.
Mm-hmm.
If it is wide scale, right, then you need the productivity board becomes so effective. But what happens is that sometimes when people are doing these nonprofits, it's a small group of people, right? It's maybe like just 2 or 3 people with different skill sets, right?
Yeah.
And so what happens? You have to make sure that the people who are on your team or your board are people who have expertise to develop the grant itself, right? Mm-hmm. And so what you don't is to have people on your team who don't have skill sets to execute the idea, right? So if you're going to have somebody who is doing an after-school program or daycare, you may want somebody in the social services and who have background in those kind of fields, right? But you don't want to put somebody on your team who is not able to lend any sense of expert resources to your grant process. So when it gets bigger and you have like a whole, tri-county, tri-state thing that's going on, then that becomes a whole bigger process where the board has to have specific people, legal people, and all these things, and then they have laws who can be on your board or who can't be. But for the most part, a person who starts a nonprofit who we would know are people who are just like 2 or 3 people coming together with an idea, mm-hmm. and they just can rent somewhere and they can they see the need in the community, and then they just have the plan, they have the need, and they can show that the money is being used properly, and then they get it. So the productivity board, you have to choose the scope of what you're doing. You don't want to get ahead of yourself. Make sure that you're not going to put money out there or put people in places that because some positions can't be paid.
Yeah.
In a nonprofit, right? And you have to be careful that you're not putting people in places where you're paying them when they're not legal to be paid.
That's good. You made a good point too. You mentioned that you want to get people who have expertise that you don't have, right? So if you need to make sure you have the right legal documents and legal papers that align with the grant, right? You need to make mm-hmm. sure you have someone who has expertise in the legal field. If you need someone to help with the reporting of the spend of the grant, right? The financing of the organization, you might need someone who is a CPA or an accountant who can help with that. So I think that there's 2 things that's required. One, people that are smarter than you in specific fields, right? In specific areas to help you to do what you can't do, but have the same drive and passion as you, right? Mm-hmm. I think the 2 have to go together, because you can have someone who is smart, very knowledgeable, but you ask them, when can we get that budget report? I'm going to get to it. I'm getting to it. I'm sorry. I forgot. I'm going to get to it. Right? Every time you ask them, it's the same thing. But if you have someone that has the knowledge and expertise and the drive, you don't even have to ask, when am I going to get it? You'll get an email. Yeah. Hey, I just sent you the budget, and a phone call right away. Just letting you know I sent you the budget. You didn't even have to ask. But when you have mm-hmm. people with that same drive, that understand the vision and what you're trying to do, and have the knowledge and expertise, that helps propel the organization forward. So, Kadeen, what are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I think Pastor Al said it great. This is one area that I actually made a mistake in the beginning, because that's one thing I forgot to mention when doing research. I found lots of free classes to mm-hmm. take just so I can gain knowledge, because we all know knowledge is power. Yeah. And the person running the workshop that said, when you build your board, you want to have people that if you were to die today, they would still carry on your mission and still carry on your nonprofit. Yeah. So automatically I said, oh, that's my sister. That's my bestie. Like, I'm like, yeah, because I trust them and they're going to keep it going. And you guys are on my board. And it wasn't until I wanted to plan and launch my first big event where someone said to me, no, the people on your board must have connections to resources. They are there to allocate resources. And I know you love your sister and your best friend, but what resources do they bring to your company? And my mind was like, so I started, that's part of networking and building relationships. I met someone who was in finance for Comcast and whose sole job was to take the money from Comcast and give it to small businesses and give out grants. So when I met her and we went for coffee, because I told y'all it's all about building relationships, I talked to her about Beautiful Ink and she loved it and she became part of my board. So yes, find people that's smarter than you, that have the resources, and not just family and friends that you trust.
Yes, That's true. And you gave a little nugget there. You mentioned about allowing your business to grow or your organization to continue when you move on.
Yeah.
It's interesting that you pointed that out because my dissertation was wrapped around that same thought. It was allowing nonprofits to have succession plans to continue to grow from generation to generation. So it's really building with the end in mind, right? And the end meaning that if you were to go, whether through passing away or you moved on, God has called you to do something else, will the organization survive when you leave? And I think that's the part where getting folks in the organization that have the same drive as you is important, because if you have passionate people that are knowledgeable, that are leaders in the organization, right? They have the leadership skills and capabilities or the potential for it. That allows you to build the organization in a way where if God said, Kadeen, I want you to go on a mission trip to Africa and I have some great work for you. Beautiful Ink will remain, but you need to get someone in charge. You already have things in place to say, okay, I'm ready to go. I think that's critical.
Yeah.
That's critical. And so I want to just address some people, well, not some, everyone, when starting something new, starting a vision, bringing forth and birthing an organization, they're going to have setbacks. They're going to have challenges. How do you handle rejection? And I'd like to end on this note because I think there's a lot of people who have the passion and the drive to start their organization, to start their nonprofit, to start moving it forward. But we know that there are going to be setbacks. We know that there are going to be challenges. We know that there's going to be rejection that comes, right? Sometimes you have to get rejected 10 times before you get a yes, right? So we want to prepare them for that moment to be able to continue to push forward. What advice would you give someone who may be dealing with setbacks, maybe dealing with rejection, maybe dealing with challenges in pushing their organization forward? I'll start with you, Kadeen, and then we'll end it off with you, Al.
Okay, awesome. This was a very big life lesson for me. I think so many business owners talk about, you get knocked down 99, you get up 100. Yeah. No one talks about the process of literally getting up. How are you getting back up when you've been laying on the floor crying for months? No one talks about that. I planned my first conference, and AJ, and I had planned for 150 people, and that many people did not register 2 weeks before, so I had to cancel. And when I tell you I felt like a failure, no matter how much self-worth I had, no matter how much people were telling me, no, this happens all the time, but it happened to me. Yeah. And I didn't touch my business for 6 months. I was completely heartbroken. I had to get grounded in the word and grounded in who I am and grounded of what God needed me to be, because I had to be obedient to my nonprofit, which is part of my ministry, because it wasn't just about me. Like, when you have a calling on your life, you are in service of other people, and it's your light that drives them to Christ. So I had to get back up by being grounded, to remind myself of who God tells me who I am, and not attach my self-worth or my company with what other people say is successful. You have to have your own view of what success looks like, and keep going. And it is hard. And I don't think people talk about how much heartbreak there is in those failures. But just know that you will get there. You will have an event that is oversold. You will have products that will keep going as long as you're aligned with what God is telling you to do.
Mm-hmm.
And being very grounded on who you are, and getting back up, even if it takes you 6 months to.
That's good. That's good stuff. Al, what would you say to someone who has to deal with rejection and setbacks?
I'm going to read a few nuggets from my second book I have here, 9 Ways to...
Go ahead, the plug. Go
Quick plug.
ahead with the plug.
In the chapter, I think in chapter 6 of the book,
Mm-hmm.
it's titled No means next option. N for next, O for options.
I like
So
that.
when I hear the word no, it's pointing me to next options. So it says no will make you ask more questions. No will have you reevaluate your intentions. No will have you reevaluate the reason behind what you desire. No will force you out of your comfort zone. No will stimulate your imagination. It's okay to accept no for now. No doesn't mean you're not capable. No could mean you're not ready at this precise moment. No is often dressed in opportunity. Remember, no means next option. And so when I tell people who are under rejection in any area of their life, particularly business, your next question should be, what's my next option, right? Or what's my next option? What's my next option? I hear no right now. I hear that this is not going to happen right now. What's my next option? That is what keeps the object in motion.
Yeah, that is good insight. No means next option.
Next.
So for
That's
those
good right
listening,
there.
if you get a no, it just means next option. As I don't even remember who said this, but as the rapper, whoever said, on to the next. On to the next one. I love that. And I think that's key. I think that's key, that you're going to get rejections. You're going to get no's. But all that means it's lessons that you learn to move on to the next person. And the next one and the next one until you reach the right person, the right connect. Amen. So I thank you guys. I mean, this was a great conversation. This will have to be continued. I know we're long spent past the time, but this was a great and engaging conversation. I want to thank you guys for being a part. And as usual, at the end, I always like to just take a little bit of time for you guys to promote whatever you're doing with your organization, if you have events or anything coming up. So I want to give you guys some time to promote as well. So Al, I'll start with you. If you have anything that you want to promote, I'll be sure to put your flyers and stuff out in the background, and just anything that you have going on. Just let the audience know what you have going on.
Okay. Well, so my books are coming up shortly. We can see the books I have written that are available. You can just go on my website. It's IEmpowerYouNow.com. It's the alphabet I, EmpowerYouNow.com. My books are available there. Also, I've launched a series on YouTube called The Empty Chair. And The Empty Chair is a platform where people share stories of how they turn their adversity into triumph. So if you want to be a part of the Empty Chair episode, or if you want to listen to somebody's story from The Empty Chair, you can just go on YouTube and you can just type in I Empower You, as in the alphabet U, and then you'll find stories coming soon. That's it, like I said, at I Empower, we are all about, giving people options. And that's what we do best. Thank you.
Thank you, Al. K. Dean, is there anything you would like to promote? And I'll put them on the screen.
Yes, thank you. So I have a vlog called Subway Walk and Talks, and it's literally me giving the word of God in a pretty unique way with shortly from 2 to 3 minutes. You can follow me on Instagram at KBeautiful, spelled with a 2. It's right there, KBEAU2, FUL. I also have a podcast entitled Thy Queendom Come. And what it is, it's giving advice to young women, to older women, and especially the younger generation on exactly how to sit on the throne and how we can share this throne of womanhood. And you can listen to that on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Anchor. And also, I'm relaunching my t-shirt line. So my t-shirt line has always been a pretty dope way to incorporate the word of God through apparel. And I came up with this new branding, B2FL, even though it's short for beautiful. It actually stands for Born to Free Lives. I think I have a calling on my life to bring people to freedom, which is salvation. And I'm doing that through my relaunch, September 20th.
Beautiful, beautiful. Thank you, Kadeen. All right, and I want to point out, as I pull up my deck, that EP Productions LLC, we are here to solve your technical issues. So whether it's IT services, building networks, setting up for technology consultation, allowing your business to have all that it needs tech-wise to move forward, to propel your organization forward, whether for-profit or non-profit. It could be audio and video production, setting up live streaming for your organization, setting up video editing studio, music studio, whatever it is. We are here. And also strategic planning. We want to align with your organization's needs to help drive the organization forward. We mentioned before in the discussions that it's not necessarily that you have all that it takes to create your organization, drive it forward. You have the vision, but sometimes you have to connect with people who can supplement the deficiencies that you may have. And that's what we're here to do. If you need some tech experience, some tech consultation to help drive your organization forward, we are here for that. And I also want to promote The Reach. There are so many ways you can connect to this platform. On YouTube, if you go to youtube.com/The Reach 2020, like and subscribe so you can get the updates every time an episode is launched. Or on facebook.com/The Reach 2020. Make sure you connect, like, subscribe, and follow. And I also want to point out the podcast. So every episode, when we complete the episode, we edit it, do a little cuts to make sure it's clean and concise for podcasting, and we put it out there. It's on all the streaming platforms: Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify. And for me personally, I always listen to podcasts when I'm either driving to work, going on a long distance drive, doing some work in the yard, even when I'm running and exercising. And it's a good way. If you saw some of this episode and didn't get to listen to all of it, subscribe to the podcast, so then you can get all the episodes. And then even when you're just out in the yard or doing whatever, you can listen to The Reach, connect and engage in the conversation. And these conversations will continue on. So even next week or the week after, when we come back and continue the conversation, you will not miss a beat. So I want to encourage you to connect to The Reach on all the platforms. And again, I just want to say to everyone, thank you, Kadeen, for being a part of this discussion. Thank you, Al, for being a part of this discussion. I want to thank everyone in the audience who has participated with your questions, with your comments, engaging. You all make this a great experience, and I enjoy doing it every week with you guys, and we will continue to do it every single week. And so we will see you for the next episode. There's going to be a brief pause this coming Saturday, the 18th, and then we're going to start right back up. And it's going to be a similar theme along the lines of the entrepreneurship, building nonprofits, helping to build up our communities with the God-given talents, abilities, and visions that God has given us specifically for such a time as this. Thanks again for being here with us, guys. I have enjoyed the conversation. I am going to play many of the advertisements, some of the things that Kadeen has talked about with Beautiful Ink and the stuff that Al has talked about. It's going to loop back at the end of this episode. I want to encourage you to just stay for a little bit, look through the ads and see the different flyers and connect with Al, with the empty chair that he's doing. Connect with Kadeen with Beautiful Ink. Connect with them. We build the kingdom and we build our communities when we connect and fellowship together and help push and press and drive each other forward. So again, thank you guys for being a part, and we will see you next time on The Reach.